We know very much that as a city of neighborhoods, culture does not just exist in the downtown area. How can we have what is happening in the on the south side influence the north side and the west side, and them all connecting together, downtown, all working together, create it so that all cultural areas are open and that people feel welcome in all areas. We're going to have a good conversation, and it's actually going to start with a little bit of a presentation, a brief presentation, and then we're going to break into groups where you're going to have the opportunity to do the talking, because the cultural plan is about Chicago and Chicagoans. So I'd like to begin by introducing myself. I'm Joy Bailey. I am a consultant with Lord Cultural Resources, and I'd like to bring up Julie Burrows, who is the Director of Cultural Planning for the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events.
Hi, thanks so much, Joy. I'm Julie Burrows. I'm the Director of Cultural Planning, and I want to welcome you to the expo and this presentation and conversation about the cultural plan. We've been doing a lot of public engagement. We did 4 large town hall meetings, and we're in the middle. Here's the map of all the meetings. We're in the middle of about 19 neighborhood cultural conversations all over the city. This coming week, we're in several locations, Woodson Library, we're going to be in Wicker Park, all over the city. And if you didn't get enough here today, we invite you to come to another meeting as well. We'll be releasing a draft plan later in the summer, and then after more input and feedback, a final plan at the beginning of the fall. We have a team here at Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events working side by side with our consultants who bring global expertise as well as local on-the-ground know-how. Lord Cultural Resources is a global consulting firm who's done lots of cultural plans, lots of strategic plans for culture, museum development, all kinds of incredible work around the world. And they're joined by a team of locals. We Too is a web firm, Amina Dickerson, Nick Rabkin, and Lisa McDonald, who probably some of you have seen if you've been out at the community meetings. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it back to Joy, and thank you so much for your time today.
So I'm not going to do this presentation alone. I'm going to bring up my colleagues. Chris Lorway, who is with Lord Cultural Resources, a consultant working on the project, who is an expert in festivals and is going to come forward to sit on the it's kind of a misnomer. I'm going to bring everyone forward to sit on this panel, but then we're going to come back down and talk to you. And, of course, we have our company co-president and founder, Gail Lord, who gave a talk last night, particularly where she emphasized particularly one of the elements that is very important in this cultural plan, and that is innovation. If you were there last night, we talked about the importance of innovation in planning cities, planning for culture in cities. And another element, we talk about how we're going to create the Chicago Cultural Plan and carry it forward. And it's actually going to take 4 parts. The public input, which Julie mentioned, as well as research, which is a lot of data and information. If you have been to any of the neighborhood cultural conversations or been to the cultural planning room downstairs, you'll see a series of maps, large maps. Well, these are interactive maps that you can go to the Chicago Community Trust website and find out all kinds of things about your particular neighborhood or your particular community. You can find demographic statistics. You can find statistics on where copyrights have been from the U.S. Federal resources, you can find out where copyrights have been sourced in your community. You can find out where creative businesses are in your community, who is having a block party, where are festivals happening. And you can also let us know if something is missing, because it's your community and you can tell us best what's going on there. So a lot of that research we're bringing out, and we're going to allow or making sure it informs the cultural planning process. We're also, we have to have buy-in. We have to have buy-in from multiple sectors. We talk about the cultural sector, but actually culture is in every sector. That's one of the things that we really are seeing is very important for planning cities culturally. It needs to live in economic development. It needs to live in the transportation department. It has to live in business and commerce. So these 4 areas are going to be the major facets creating the Chicago Cultural Plan. Where are we now? I talk about, whenever this slide comes up, I say we're at a cultural crossroads. We had a phenomenal kickoff for the cultural plan in February. In the month of February, we had 4 town hall meetings where we spoke with over 1,000 Chicagoans about their vision for the future of culture in the city of Chicago. These were massive and energetic gatherings, and we have a video that we always show. We didn't have time because this is 1 hour and we wanted you all to do more talking, but you feel and felt the energy from all of the people attending those meetings. We are now going into a place where we're taking the information gained in the town hall meetings and coming back to neighborhoods. So what did we get out of those town hall meetings? How can Chicago reach its cultural potential? We got 6 big themes or big ideas. I mean, out of 1,000, over 1,000 people, you can imagine that there were many things that people said, but they really did come into 6 big buckets. And the first of those is increased cultural participation by increasing accessibility. Everybody always says, accessibility, do you mean like ADA accessibility? Actually, we're talking about access. What inspires you to participate in culture and what prevents you from participating in culture? Is it lack of awareness of what's going on? Do you have an issue with transportation? Are there cost issues? I mean, is something too expensive? And finally, is it just that you don't feel safe going into a particular area, or you have a fear of going into a particular area, whether it's around safety or not? So that's more about accessibility. Securing arts education for our students. And we have K through 12 because that's more of the age range that we're talking about, not necessarily within public schools, that is in this group, but also what opportunities simply exist for our students of this age range, and are there creative examples of these types of arts education offerings being offered anywhere outside of the city or throughout the city that can be replicated? Is there equitable access to arts education for our students? Downtown and beyond, cross-pollinate culture citywide. We talk a lot about the fact that we know very much that as a city of neighborhoods, culture does not just exist in the downtown area. How can we have what is happening in on the south side influence the north side and the west side, and them all connecting together, downtown, all working together, create it so that all cultural areas are open and that people feel welcome in all areas. It's not just geographic, this cross-pollinating culture. It's what I was speaking about earlier, culture having a place at the table with business and commerce and transportation and economic development, all of those different areas, cross-pollinating across the board so that culture sits at the table in every setting. Another big idea was strengthening capacity within the cultural sector. That's simply the ability of the cultural sector to survive and to thrive, and to grow. So this was a particularly important one. I know that you can imagine. We also heard very much ensure a vibrant cultural space for artists, cultural groups, and neighborhoods. This is simply, are there places to both create, to produce, and to consume artistry, to consume culture? And what do we do to facilitate the creation of those spaces, whether they are buildings or vacant lots or just spaces that organically come about? And finally, attract and retain artists. This through a priority on sustainability. This is about making Chicago a place where artists can make a living wage so that you can be an artist as a profession, not an artist on the side, unless you choose to do that. But the point is that this is a place that people gather, that artists gather, and feel that they will be able to move forward. So these 6 big ideas were really important and rose to the top, and they were really buckets that we were able to put a lot of the issues that people brought to us in those town hall meetings. Next, we're in this neighborhood cultural conversation phase, and also these expo workshops. And these are, I'm going to put these in the same kind of pair, in that we now want you to delve deeper. We want you to think about yourself, be egocentric. Yesterday we talked about cultural organizations, and today we specifically want to focus on artists. We want to know, of those 6 big buckets, what really speaks to you the most? What are your particular issues, and what resources are you thinking to bring to the table, or do you need? So we want to take this opportunity to expand further into that. Okay, so I went through those 6 big buckets, and the way that we're going to structure this conversation is that we're going to vote. Being egocentric, most times you don't have an opportunity to do that, right? We do want to talk about community and feel, but right now Joy is saying it's okay to be egocentric. So when we go through these 6 or these 5, I'm going to say 5 because since this is a focus on artists, and we're actually wanting to, whether you are actually an artist in the room right now, we do want to focus on the needs of artists particularly. So instead of voting as we normally would do in a cultural conversation on all 6 of these, we're actually only going to vote on 5 because an artist is actually going to be a piece of every single one of these. So that's the mindset we would like you to bring into your group conversations. Okay? So when you vote, we want you to raise your hand high, and you can pick the top 2 big themes that really apply to you. Okay? So the first one is increase cultural participation by increasing accessibility or access. All right. Secure K-12 arts education. Downtown and beyond, cross-pollinate culture citywide. Strengthen capacity within the cultural sector. Ensure vibrant cultural spaces. Whoa. Okay. Let's see what we got. Yeah, no, it's 3 of us. That's fine. Okay. Wow, we got a close vote. So we will have 3 groups, okay? And the way that I'm going to tell you where the groups are, and you can go to the group that you feel that you want to discuss these with. We're going to ask you one question with 3 parts. What is your role as an artist in addressing the particular theme that you're going to go to? So when I announce the theme, this is the question that you want to think about. What is your role as an artist in addressing these themes now, in the future, and getting from now to the future? Okay? So the first group, which I'm going to call group 1, is going to be increasing cultural participation by increasing access. And that group is going to be in the front of the room, right by Julie Burroughs. Okay? Group number 2 is going to be Cross-Pollinate Culture Citywide. And that group is going to be in the far back corner, back by the videographer. If you raise your hand, you see the camera. So you're going to go back there. That group is Cross-Pollinate Culture Citywide. And then group 3 is Ensuring Vibrant Cultural Spaces. That group is extra special. So you're going to be in the back room, a little bit further back so that our back group doesn't influence the conversation there. So now we may break.
All right, so group 1, our question was, how do we increase cultural participation and just, open up awareness, get different people into the discourse of seeing art that might be outside of their neighborhood or outside of, their circle of influence. Outside of the circle of influence, outside of the neighborhood, what have you. First thing, create more incubator spaces for art, like Chopin, like Athenaeum. Also, an idea was to maybe have satellite cultural centers in different parts of Chicago that, people usually wouldn't expect. 2, to have a database similar to the Arts Education Alliance database for sponsorship alliances for artists and for organizations so that artists and organizations can have more of a choice of, sponsors, and then also be able to offer up advertisement for the sponsors that they want to choose as opposed to just basically taking whatever's available. 3, more workshops for artists to learn how to network better, and learn how to fundraise better, learn how to do arts business better, and 4, to make people more aware of opportunities just as far as within city for grants, for licenses. For instance, one of the people in our circle has a free speech license. And it's an interesting thing now because free speech is, there's a bill that might actually challenge that was just signed. So people need to know that for one, and also need to know that there are ways to, to keep their free speech. Thank you.
Group 2, I believe it's about space or space. Yes, group 2.
Good morning. So we were in the back talking about the spaces, and we were talking about how we, right now, so we broke it down to now, the future. So right now, affordable live workspaces, there's some zoning issues that make it difficult for artists. Residency and process work. There needs to be an 800-seat theater, maybe a new space for the CSO. The application process for pop-up galleries and exhibits, incubators, resources to create, and then pop-up spaces, maybe even for performing arts, and the insurance liabilities that go along with that. For the future, create sustainable and green spaces, diversity and distribution. These are our ideals for the future. Less insular public awareness and integration of the arts and collaborations between the arts, virtual incubators connecting neighborhood cities and maybe even beyond, access and knowledge of technology, virtual support, cultural model is currently boring. How can we change that? And then there's the ownership stake. And then finally we said city as a focal point for information, make it easier for the zoning and the permits and the access.
Ms. Lucy.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Hi, I'm Molly. We had the topic of how do you cross-pollinate the arts in neighborhoods and through downtown. And a couple of things we came up with about the current situation, or these are the few things we brainstormed, is that people are a little frustrated sometimes that the arts are only downtown, or at least only promoted downtown, in a general sense. Like that's where tourism comes and people come. So wanting to expand some of that. And then is the neighborhoods are very strong places of identity, which is great, and we love that about Chicago, but it's also been limiting in ways. And we talked about how can we build into the individual and the neighborhoods and reduce some of the barriers and take down some of the negative stereotypes that some of these neighborhoods do come across, to decrease the polarity and increase curiosity about different places in Chicago, and just reduce different fears that people might have had over the last few years or even over decades. So how do we make art visible and visible in neighborhoods, and who is it visible to? And in terms of looking at it, how do we honor and help people flourish in communities? So some of the things we talked about for the future, we talked arts education for students, different after-school programming, different things that a lot of organizations are already currently doing, but really getting kids more on the honoring art and being aware of what the arts are. We also had someone talk about how photography partnerships, different tours in the area, getting different people involved on learning about an area and taking pictures and exposing that to different organizations and individuals. More public art, murals, commissioned art within neighborhoods, with community people, for people to enjoy. More artists bringing art to businesses. We could have gallery shows in businesses. We could take those artists, and if they're from, Lincoln Park or the South Side, they could have their art in a business in another neighborhood, kind of like the same way an international artist is brought in downtown to have a big show. Like these are, a group of artists would be brought into different neighborhoods, like just on a smaller scale, to be able to highlight neighborhood businesses and neighborhood artists. Having some type of position that's a person or a group that's a neighborhood curator, people that talk about how they can innovate plans across neighborhoods. There's a lot of great consultants out there that do things like that. More support from politicians and leadership, and then more public art in open spaces near places where people go often, like grocery stores and the library and things like that. So those were a few ways we kind of talked about how do we get arts more exposed in the neighborhoods.
Our ending time. I just wanted to ask if maybe anybody had any questions before we wrap up. A couple of questions.
Well, how did this begin? What did someone observe that brought this on to begin with? I guess maybe
Right. So why are we doing a cultural plan?
Yeah.
Is that the question? Great question. We're doing a cultural plan. Well, as maybe some of you guys know, there was a cultural plan done under the Washington administration in '86, and Mayor Rahm Emanuel's transition plan for the city of Chicago. There was actually an arts and culture transition team and had a whole host of recommendations, and one of their top recommendations is that the city needs an update, needs a new cultural plan. So that's really one of the main motivations for doing a new cultural plan. New administration, new energy, new ideas, new department heads, new economic reality, new technology, all kinds of things have changed since '86. And so it was really seen that a new cultural plan would really help not only further the goals of the arts and culture sector, but further larger goals for the city of Chicago as a whole. So we get to do a new cultural plan. Uh-huh.
So you've done 4 big town hall meetings, now you're doing all these neighborhood meetings. Have you found them to be very similar or very different? And are they starting to be very repetitive? And then the second part of that, once you've done all this stuff, what do you anticipate to come up with?
Right. So if I can just summarize the question, asking about are the neighborhood plans, are they getting repetitive? It's interesting. There's issues that cut across all neighborhoods. I have to say space and arts ed are sort of issues that have been common among almost every single neighborhood meeting we've had, but so that the topic is similar, but the discussion is rather different. And so there are elements that are repeated again and again, and there are things that are quite different because obviously our city has very diverse neighborhoods with different kinds of needs. So it's really both things that we're finding. Everything that we're taking in both in person and through social media will be compiled and synthesized and be part of the cultural plan. The State of Cultural Report will summarize that and then will become recommendations in the draft cultural plan. So it's all going to come together somehow. That's all your hard job to figure out. I do want to encourage you. Oh, one more question and then that's... Sure.
So if that's something that we're interested in, how would we go about it and the timeline of not
Right.
ongoing, but
So the question was about what's the timeline and how can you be involved through social media. We're part of every single part of social media. You'll find that all at the Cultural Plan website, which is shown on the screen. So we really encourage you to submit your ideas and comment and be part of that dialogue. We'll be doing another series of town hall meetings in, I think, mid-July after the draft cultural plan, the draft for public comment is released. So you'll have another sort of large in-person opportunity to engage with us and be involved. And we'll also be sort of taking all your ideas on social media at that point as well. So lots and lots and lots of opportunities. We do have to end because there is another workshop. We can talk after. I'll be here to talk. Thanks so much and enjoy the expo.